small city. We have 10 business improvement districts in Massachusetts. They range in size from budgets of $6.5 million in downtown Crossing to Hudson with a budget of about $120,000. And Hudson has just been named the best Main Street in the USA in large part for the work that their bid is doing. So, John? Some of the reasons why, what are the benefits of forming a bid? They give you the opportunity, and I'm not sure why this is all fitting on the screen, but to make strategic investments, to drive your own local priorities. So you're investing in whatever you have designed locally. They are nimble. They allow you to respond to crises or take advantage of opportunities that might be out there. They provide sustainable and predictable finances. And one of the most important things is they provide a unified voice and advocacy. So every mayor or city manager I ever talked to says, I would much rather hear from an organization that says, these are the priorities of our districts. And you are able to then use this organization to help you advocate for the things that are important for your district. It's directly controlled by your members, your property owners and businesses that are part of your bid. And all bids are formed as 501c3s, which allow, and with the board of directors, and you provide the governance for what happens within your district. Join us. So as said, these are designed to be supplemental services, and we like to use the example of the tap. Most cities and towns try to do the absolute best they can within their communities and provide the level of services that they want to be able to provide in their downtowns. Sort of like the city takes you out for a pizza, and they're going to say, we have the money to buy you a cheese pizza, but you really want pepperoni and sausage and other kinds of things. Those are the enhancements that an organization like this can provide. They are the bells and whistles that help you create a special place, a destination where people want to invest or shop or live or locate or buy properties or do development. Those are the kinds of things that create your place. So they're designed around local governance, local priorities, strategic investments with scale, and they're also very effective at leveraging the dollars. So you may generate a budget of X, but bids, if they're good, and Chris is very good at this, so he'll be talking about how they leverage those dollars out multiple times over. We had a meeting in Central Square in Boston last week with some visitors from Fall River and some visitors from Brookline, and one of their property owners said to us, for every dollar that I invest in this district, I get $10 back in services because it leverages those dollars out manyfold. I'm going to just quickly run through a few high-level things that bids do. So bids work on things like business development, and I'm not going to read all these things because we're going to post this up online, so you'll be able to see the kinds of things that they do. But this could include business recruitment programs, market studies, facade programs, merchandise support. Some bids actually do real estate development. You'll see bids around that do those kinds of things. And they advocate for the business community. They're very active in placemaking, so things like lighting and farmers market and performances and art installations, landscaping, all of those kinds of enhancements that really help you feel like the place is, that you create this place. You're creating your own destination. So these are the kinds of things that are more than a bench, but it's an intentional way of thinking about the physical design, the physical improvements you make in a space, how it's programmed, the activations that happen. Those are the kinds of things that help you create those placemaking activities. Many bids are very heavily involved in arts and culture and cultural exploration. These are creating experiences or celebrations, giving more reasons for people to come. You have a new brewery in town. You want to be able to have more reasons for people to come to your downtown. And many bids are very active in those kinds of programming. These are a couple of examples of Starlight Theater. You haven't been to it in Cambridge. So celebrating your cultural diversity, doing murals, and really creating a special dynamic using arts and culture. Many bids get involved with marketing and creating, other kinds of destination drivers, public relations. It's going to be collaborative marketing efforts, restaurant weeks, seasonal celebrations, signature events. A lot of bids might have a big jazz festival, or they might have another kind of a big signature event that you might be known for within your community. Many times bids deal with the nuts and bolts of just landscaping and maintenance. I love this picture. This was an example of one of the bids, and they managed to extract about 30 years worth of stickers that were on a light pole. That those little levels of maintenance that you might not see. Some bids get involved in snow removal, hanging baskets, other kinds of plantings, things that beautification and things that cities typically can't afford to do, or it's not appropriate for them to do them and to maintain them well. But bids take on those kinds of things. And then you guys get involved in other sorts of ways to support how do people move around their district. So it could be doing parking analysis. It could be dealing with valet programs. It could be identifying electrical outlets where to charge your cars, or other types of ways to help people navigate the district well. So how do we get started? So right now we're in the starting process. We're working with stakeholders, property owners, the city, to try to, John, to look at how do we create a bid. So the bid is actually formed by legislation, Chapter 40, enabling legislation that allows municipalities to create bids. It has to be a contiguous geographic area. 75% of that geography has to be used or used for commercial, retail, industrial, and mixed-use zoning. Typically, that's a low bar for downtowns. Most downtowns do that. They're established through a local petition process, and they are renewed every 5 years by the property owners within the district. So in forming a bid, next one slide, there are 4 phases. There's a feasibility phase, there's creating a bid plan, there's a petition process, and then initiating your operations. So we're kind of in the little past the feasibility phase. We're doing a bunch of engagement pieces to try to find to talk to it. We haven't formed a steering committee. That steering committee is continuing to be built out. But we've done some focus groups, we're doing surveys, we're doing meetings like this to try to inform people about the concept of the bid, but also to hear from you about what are your priorities? What are the kinds of things that you think would have a return on your investment, that would add value to your downtown, that would help the downtown be more economically and socially vibrant? So we are in sort of the planning stage right now. We're doing a lot of engagement and outreach, and the outcome of that will be to create a plan that will then form the petition that needs to be supported by 60% of the property owners within this district that represent 50% of the 51% of the assessed value. So that petition will have a plan, it will have a budget, a fee structure, the boundaries, and provisions for hardship. So if a property owner has a significant hardship, the bid can deal with a way for that property owner to provide relief for some period of time in order for the bid to go forward. So that's where we are. So those are the 4 phases. We're sort of in the planning phase now. We're continuing to test the feasibility to see if there's support for this district. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of months. So we're looking for your involvement and how do we create that plan. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to pass this along because we have Chris and Evelyn, and we wanted to take the opportunity tonight to learn more about 2 specific bids that are in Massachusetts. One that's relatively new, one that's been around for a while. Find out the program services that they're doing. Then we're going to have about half an hour for questions and answers. And so if you have a thought or question for me, just jot it down and we'll deal with it.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, with that, Chris,
I don't
you're
know how
up
to work
next.
that, sorry. No.
Left-handed, so this feels weird over thanks for, can everyone hear me if I just not use this? Yeah. Okay, I'll speak loud. I'll pick it up. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful that you are investigating and looking into the formation of a bid. I can attest, the Springfield bid is the first bid form in the state of Massachusetts, like Andy said earlier. It's been around since 1999 in operation. I've now been there about half of its life, 10 years in January, and it's a wonderful organization. I'll start, you can go on to my first slide, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. one of the big things we're doing right now is marketing. So we market the city for outside visitors. Our downtown in Springfield does not have a large population that lives in the downtown. So a lot of the people that come to visit, we have to draw in suburban towns around us. So we take marketing to the next level. We leverage our resources with all of our partners in the downtown. So we're supporting our property owners by supporting the businesses that are tenants in their buildings. You can go on to my, okay, I'll go back. Now we have over 30,000 followers on our social media. We do traditional media. We do a downtown newsletter, what's happening in downtown. This is a free newsletter. We don't charge for this. And we have over 14,000 readers that get that weekly, that advertise from apartment rentals to concerts to vacancies in buildings for offices, apartments, the whole 9 yards. So that goes out to approximately 14,000 people a week. Our open rate on that is 6.5%, which is tremendous. So people are using that resource. It's good. I can actually see what's going on up there. Beyond the downtown, one of the things that we look at with the resources, and let me back up too. So Springfield's bid is not the largest bid in the state, downtown crossings. Our budget, the bid fees that the property owners pay are approximately $850,000 a year. One of the things that I'm most proud of is 2 to 3 years into my tenure, we started leveraging the resources that came in from the property owners. And now 2.5 times what the property owners comes in to the organization as revenue. And that's revenue generated through sponsorships, programming, grants, leveraging our money to chase other dollars for a whole host of different reasons. So when I talk about one of the ways a bid can be nimble and change kind of on a dime, unlike the municipality, and that's why they love having us around. When COVID struck, the sky was falling. Everybody didn't know what was going to happen next. We were going to be closed for 2 weeks and then back to normal. And then it was 2 months and longer. And then people were contemplating not going back to offices. What do you do, right? So we saw this exodus from New York City and a little bit from Boston at that time. So we took advantage of a big marketing campaign in metropolitan New York and Boston, and began attracting not only businesses, but residents and investors to the city of Springfield. So that's beyond just our what's happening, what's on special in a local restaurant or bar. That was our larger marketing campaign that's already produced 4 new restaurants in the city of Springfield in the last year and a half. So I'll go on to programming. Okay, so one of the things that we do, years ago, the streets were quiet. We don't have a large downtown population. We wanted the streets to look active, fun. What's happening here. So we have events 12 months out of the year. When we started putting these events on, we went to a large corporate partner, which was Mass Mutual. They undertook some initial funding, but all the programs that we run now, over 100 events a year, are now put on all with outside dollars. There's no property shareholder money that goes into any of these events. As a matter of fact, we raise excess dollar that we go back into capital improvements in the downtown. That's just more of what I was talking about. We'll get to the next one. Springfield bid investments. This is another angle. We've partnered with Mass Development. We have a TDI. We've had a fellow in the city. So that was the state's transformative development initiative. We participated in that. We were one of the partners that vied across the state to bring a fellow in that was, funded by Mass Development originally. It was a wonderful program. We took full advantage of it. And through that, we took in hundreds of thousands of dollars in investment from Mass Development. We then leveraged that actually into property ownership. We own a building that was going to get purchased by, I'll say in quotes, church. It was a church in Maine. We saw this happening in the heart of what was the budding dining district and said, this probably isn't a good fit. So we actually partnered with Mass Development. They purchased the property originally and then transferred ownership to us with a large grant and construction loan. And I'm happy to say that the construction of that actually is started in 2 months. It's going to be a brewery and a restaurant. 14,000 square foot. It was the largest footprint in our dining district, and it had sat empty for about 10 years. It was a former nightclub. Another thing that bids do that we don't necessarily advertise. We got involved prior to this with an investment through a master lease in the same dining district, which is now taken off. But the problem was we would have restaurants look at a lot of these vacant spaces and say it's wonderful, it looks beautiful, but you've got these 2 problem nightclubs that are causing all sorts of problems, and we're not going to get our customers to come down. So we knew we had to address it. We can address it in a way that the city can't. So we had a property owner that unfortunately had to take the rent. And until he could replace those tenants, he needed to pay his bills. So we intervened when their leases expired. We stepped in. We did a master lease for those 2 spaces, which gave the property owner breathing room to be able to let those folks go until we found a higher and better use. Very happy now. And actually that little complex of buildings in the next year, the first floor retail will be 100% full. So that was only 6 years ago, I think. Yeah. So the other big thing that we have that's very popular in Springfield, which kind of launched partially as a public safety project, but also a beautification project, was our architectural light program. So we've leveraged, again, resources there. We've put architectural uplighting on 36 buildings now in the downtown, as well as cafe lights that overhang a lot of our city streets. And you can see, go to the next slide. Well, anyways, they're beautiful. And if you go to Springfield downtown and check out our website, we got a ton of pictures there. COVID response, we were there for small business owners. We immediately, in the first 4 months, went out and had gathered over $200,000 of resources to help small businesses stay afloat. This is in addition to federal and state programs, so it was additional monies that we put in. We then were partners in capital investment to put infrastructure in, because a lot of our downtown restaurants, unlike suburban locations, did not have outdoor dining. So we went to City Hall, we worked with City Hall, part of our resources, part of the city's resources, and also some federal money went into putting sidewalk bump outs. So for a long-term solution to a lot of these storefronts, as opposed to just a narrow sidewalk or a pedestrian way, they now have the ability in front of 7 restaurants in downtown Springfield for al fresco dining. And that really kept people afloat when people didn't want to go inside due to the pandemic. So I don't even, go ahead.
Tell me a little bit more about your Pride 1 grant to subsidize outside. You get pretty much grant awards to small businesses, right?
We gave them
Chris,
2.
Chris, just repeat the question for the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. The
No,
question-
no, well, let Chris, because he said.
Oh, because I have the microphone. So the question is, were those resources directly to the building owner? Those dollars there were, yes. We spent another $500 million on long-term infrastructure, but those dollars went directly to building owners to help pay rent payments, utility bills while they were shut down.
How much was that?
It was just under $200,000 between rent subsidies, utility subsidies, and then buying or reimbursing them for picnic tables, all the heaters and all that kind of stuff, so they can bring their operation outside.
I'm just trying to get a sense, how many businesses did you fund for 200?
About 2 dozen, roughly, yeah. Approximately, yeah. It was a good program, and please know that was only one small thing that was heaped on. We did not lose a restaurant during COVID, during the pandemic. As a matter of fact, we've actually grown 5 restaurants in the downtown coming out of the pandemic. So, or right now, we get out of COVID, I'm sick of it. There's the downtown street light. This is what we're talking about. As you can see, this is MGM Resort to the right. That's the cafe style lane that we installed. We partnered with the city there. The city had projected through RFPs to do that lighting through the city of upwards of $500,000. We did that lighting for $85,000 for the city. Okay, so that's one of the things where we can leverage being a private enterprise versus municipality, how we can get something done and actually take resources a little further. And all union labor was used too, by the way. So here are just a couple examples of this is our Main Street, and you can see the architectural lighting. What you don't see in these photos is what we've also installed when we did the architectural lighting that highlights all the beautiful architectural characteristics of the building. Because we also put flood lighting to supplement the streets, the city street lights. So for pedestrians, they feel very comfortable moving around the downtown. Okay, this is the stuff that everybody hears about. Street cleaning, beautification, landscape, hanging pots. This is a, I don't take this lightly. It's the easiest thing for people to say, what do you do? And as simple as it sounds, how people feel about their surroundings makes a huge impact. If I take pride in my surroundings, that person that may have thrown trash on your sidewalk looks around and finds a place to put it. If graffiti goes up in the city, we have a response team that responds within 24 hours. And we really, and I don't like to say it, but we probably only get a half dozen calls now a year, where it used to be very frequently, because once someone tags a building that goes up, someone has to one-up them or do whatever they're going to do. So that program is still in place, where when a property owner calls or our ambassadors see any graffiti, it gets removed within 24 hours. And our ambassadors work 7 days a week, 9 months out of the year, then they work 5 days a week during the winter months. I'll make it time.
Good.
I believe that is the end.
That was it. Any other questions? Everyone is best. Go ahead.
My question to you is, what is the population of Springfield?
Approximately just under 250,000.
Do they get help from the city, the city officials? Do they get help from the city itself?
Yes. So that's a very good question. He asked, does the bid get help from the city? And this answer has changed over the life of this bid. This bid's been around for 23 years. The city contributes now separately from special projects. They contribute $150,000 on top of the $850,000 that the private property owners contribute. It is voluntary. So when you're forming your bid and everybody wants to bring it on board, that would be a great time to have a MOU in place with the municipality. Our city of Springfield has a number of buildings, including City Hall, libraries, museum, buildings within the downtown. And one of the ways we kind of set that was if we looked at there was an assessed value on these buildings. So we have every 3 years we sign a contract with the city, and we spell out in that contract the services that we're going to provide directly to the city or supplement city services, and they're contributing $150,000 for that.
And also minority community participate in helping out.
The community?
The minority community, how do they participate in helping you out? Obviously,
How does the community participate in helping you out?
The property owners
no.
or
The minority community.
I'm not catching the question. Sorry.
No, the minority.
No, minority.
How they participate in helping the city.
The minority, well, I guess our city would probably be defined as it's made up mostly of minorities, our downtown. So we designed programs, our farmers market, for instance, we have a lot of poverty in the city of Springfield in the downtown. We made sure when we brought a farmers market, it wasn't just hoity-toity, we were bringing flowers home or something fancy. We have vegetables from farmers throughout the region, but we made sure we have EBT and HIPAA benefits for all of those folks. So that, the folks that live in the downtown participate in a lot of our events. We choose musical acts for our concert nights for those folks to be able to get out and enjoy, a free event.
General question, I tried to live in those Springfield quite often. I love, are you from Springfield?
I am.
Right.
Yep.
Um,
I grew up next to Forest Park.
Okay, I know the nursing homes, they're very dull, I love the nursing homes. I love that. What's the name of the-
Connecticut River.
What's the name of the high? Living up there.
91.
91, goes all the way.
Chickadee's right there.
It's a north, so we're at crossroads, actually, the way,
Yeah.
we have 91 and then we have 90 that intersects.
These are the question, you just get specify.
I mean, highway 24. West side, but you really don't. We do have. Very. Yeah. Develop. West side. Springfield and Brockton. Two different animals. I love Springfield.
Yeah, well, and let me, so, and I don't want to take much time from Evelyn, because I know she's going to talk next, but so I participate with the 9 other bids in the state that Ann pulls together, and prior to COVID, we were getting together every other month. But collaborating all the time with what's working, what does this program work for you? I have this problem. Have you had it in the past? Because every bid, every single bid, all 10 of them in the state look entirely different. Totally different. That's the beauty of the bid. The bid, so I'm managed by a board of directors. I have a board of 11. That board represents the 78 property owners. It's representative of the property owners. So I report to them on a monthly basis, but I talk to our shareholders on a regular basis also. So we're in constant communication with what may be a problem. How can I help? We're a liaison between the property owners and City Hall. So that's one of the benefits, and they're all going to look very, very different.
Actually, if I could just go in, because there's a couple of folks that are here that have been longtime property owners in Brockton. And there's some folks that are here that are new, that are opening up some business. How do you gauge that difference between someone who's been here for 20, how many years? 30 years versus somebody new, and how do you interact? Like, there are folks that have been paying property taxes and have kind of been struggling along these years. So how do you bring folks together in that kind of environment?
Well, I think having the open dialogue with what the problems are and addressing those problems head on. So the problems, I don't know Brockton's downtown, but I'm going to guess we have a lot of similarities, and there's probably some things that are different. But a lot of the problems that we face and still face to this day are problems that aren't unique, whether this property owner has been here for a dozen years and this property owners do. The one thing I'll caution as you're forming your bid, and I know there was a couple times in the Springfield bids history where certain property owners would want to pull back dollar for dollar every dollar they put in, okay? And there were bid directors or boards at the time that kind of fall prey to that philosophy. And the problem with that is now you're not compiling massive dollars that can make real change. You're just exchanging back and forth and doing each other favors. The best thing I can say is if you're forming a bid, is keeping lines of communication open constantly. And the first person I'm going to go to is the person that's unhappy and has a problem, because that's the person I need to address first to figure out what can we do to help them out. So keep those lines of communication and having board leadership that is very representative of those different types of property owners. The other thing is we also talk about the value of properties. In downtown Springfield, we have 4 office towers. Those 4 office towers contribute 45% of the bid fees. Now, if I only answer to them, they're not the ones that have a lot of problems. It's the smaller property owners that have more problems, and they recognize through what we do that that's benefiting them. It's raising everybody up. So, having a board of directors that's very diverse, that represents different years of ownership, different levels of ownership, and then also diversity in who the people are. So, representative of the community.
What percentage did you say, Chris? The 4 towers, what percent?
Approximately 40 to 45%.
You mentioned what,
just about 2,000 businesses qualify for the COVID relief. But I'm assuming you must have more than 24 businesses over there. Downtown.
Yeah, well,
I mean, my question would be, so what were the criteria for these businesses to be qualified for, since you picked out, 24 businesses?
well, there were certain businesses that we saw that suffered directly from a shutdown. So they were, for the most part, restaurants, retail. We excluded bank retail from that program. But those were the primary recipients. But there was a men's clothier that received assistance. Trying to think of a couple other examples off the top of my head. I would say probably 75% were restaurants. And there was more than 24. I think the other thing is there's another program that we did after this that we went back out with, and I just didn't put it.
So
in
did
the
you
slide.
guys, reach out to these businesses or any?
Well, yes, and thank you, that's a good question too. So we helped a lot of these businesses with their PPP loans or put them in touch with an SBA lender that could help them get the real dollars that they needed to get through. So we were a liaison there, and if you look at our Springfield Downtown website, even today, we have business resources on there that will show grants that are available. They'll show storefront improvements. We have a whole host of different things that we connect the property owner or their tenants to resources from all different, entities where they can get assistance for their property.
Just add one quick note, in the town, the little bid in Hudson, Mass, during COVID, they took $20,000 and they hired a retired accountant to help that, and then they offered to every single business within the bid free help in filling out their PPP and idle loans applications if they wanted to. 70 businesses took advantage of that, and all of them received their loans, and all of them were able to work that out. So they offered it to everybody, and even if the business did not take advantage of it, it was available to anybody within this district. So it was really strategic use of a little chunk of their very small budget, but they felt during COVID, this was the most important thing that they could do. So they were able to respond to that crisis. Yeah.
We did a similar program, and we did not pay for an account. So we had 3 local banks that we reached out to that were headquartered or officed in Springfield, and actually had their teams, and we connected, I want to say close to 100 businesses to that same resource.
Are the local police kiosks part of your bid, or is that part of the city?
I don't believe in police kiosks personally. Yes, they're in our bid. That was brought by a former police commissioner who's actually a very good friend of mine. But I've always disagreed with the police kiosks. I believe police in downtown should walk and beat. And that's what our metro unit does today. Very rarely we see a police officer sitting in the kiosk. The police don't like them. They're a visible target, stationary in a tiny cube, sitting on the side of the road. And what we prefer, here's another thing. So I work with the leadership of the police department. I work with Commissioner Clapperud and the metro unit hand in hand, and we speak almost weekly or bi-weekly about different types of issues. And the thing that I believe in policing, and I don't think that changes in any downtown, is the visibility of having police walk, stop into stores, talk to people, find out what's going on. They don't do any good in a cruiser unless they're gonna have to chase somebody, and they belong walking the beat. That's, I believe in that 100%.
I got a couple quick things. Springfield, you guys got the basketball Hall of Fame.
We do.
Around the same time, Brockton was considered for a boxing hall. And it was more of an idea than what's that. And we got fixed on that. We just got dismissed on that Hall of Fame. I wanted to bring that up. This was Brockton. Know the history of Brockton. From the state coach, and they're going to make a decision. We don't get. We don't get first class. I believe in that.
Well, listen, you know what? And I hear that a lot in my bit, because what I hear is the eastern part of the state gets everything. We're, you know what? Somebody's always gonna get less and somebody's gonna get more, but I'll tell you something, but why is it important? We partnered with Mass Development I'm knocking on their door every day. I want more, and that's what I'm there for my shareholders. My board loves it because of that. And if I wasn't there, that's one less person asking for all these different resources.
We
So
don't even have a full Walmart. You can get a full Walmart. He don't.
So let's do this, because we're gonna go right into Worcester, because
I know.
this is like, no, ideally, but this is exactly what we want you hearing, listening, ask these questions. With that, Evelyn, thank you. Chris, thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Evelyn Darling. And I think like Ann said, we're one of the newest bids in Massachusetts. So Ann helped us. We were a TDI district. And out of that was formed the bid and helped us in our steering committee. So the bid was initially formed in 2018, and I was hired in 2019. So it's been just about 3 years that we've had services in Worcester with the Worcester bid. Next slide. So as Ann mentioned, each bid in Massachusetts has its own fee structure, defines its own membership. So this is how districts organized and nonprofit organizations, of which we have 20 or so, that own commercial property do pay in. See the fee structure there, everybody pays the same. So here's like kind of a snapshot of the downtown Worcester bid and bid fees that are assessed, and we have approximately 140 properties. So we're really compact. You know, one of the things that you're going to look at is what sort of boundary you want to form. So we are not the entirety of downtown Worcester. We're just like a 3-block by 5-block area. And that was strategic. You know, that was based on those criteria that you have to hit, the 60% property owners, 51% assessed value. And so, you know, we're a pretty compact district. You know, downtown Worcester, like the DCU Center, for example, is not within the county. That's a city-owned property, and that would really make it even harder for us to have achieved that 61% to 51%. So we're pretty compact. We're centered around the Worcester Common. And so, you know, you can see our boundaries. Hopefully we get renewed, you know, after 5 years, and there's already talk of expansion. It's exciting, you know, because we don't encompass the whole downtown, but we wanted to focus, start small, and then hopefully we grow. So here are the services that we provide, and this, again, you know, Ann was talking about the engagement and the participation of the property owners and business owners. So there was a lot of engagement in Worcester before the bid was formed, and these were the things that people really gravitated towards. Next slide. So maintenance and cleanliness and safety, those were really like key. So many people, so many property owners really talked about that. Because if you knew Worcester, like going back 5 years, 10 years, downtown Worcester had a tough reputation. People didn't really want to come to downtown Worcester. It was dirty. People felt really unsafe. So that was like a real goal of the bid, was to take that on. And we do that through our ambassador program. Chris was talking about his ambassador program. Same thing in downtown Worcester. So we actually, right now, we contract with an outside agency. So a number of bids do that, where they contract with a national organization that specifically has ambassadors. And so they hire people who are local to Worcester, local residents, who work and clean the streets, move graffiti, weeding, but they also do a lot of hospitality aspects. So they're on the street from April to the end of October, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. And then it's 5 days a week during the winter. So they're out there helping people. You know, somebody has an issue of directions, like how do you get to the ballpark, or, how do I park, how do we use this like parking kiosk? They're there to assist. They're also there to help with events. So one of the things that we do, downtown is we do events and we assist with events. And so our ambassadors are a great help with that. Another thing we do is snow removal, snow clearing. Worcester gets dumped on with snow, and that was deemed like, that's really important. Now, snow removal is expensive. It's really expensive. So we try different, we're trying different things in different ways to like clear the sidewalks and get that snow out of there, because Worcester can get 50, 70, 100 inches of snow. So those snow piles come up really high. So we cart away some snow. Our ambassadors are out there helping clear. The property owners are responsible, but we're there to assist. And especially to make sure the curb cuts and the intersections are clear, and then also to cut the snow away. It is really expensive, so this is something that we're looking at. We're new, so we're trying different things, and we tried like, all right, should we see if we can get one of those almost like Bobcat type machines, and could we figure out a way to get one actually for the bid and run that around? Should we have our ambassadors do all this? Should we hire an outside firm? So we're trying different things, but it is an important service, especially because we just get dumped on. Next slide. So we do placement, again, I mentioned, and beautification efforts. So we have started now, we're now in our really second year of doing flowers, and it's really, it's amazing how much flowers can enliven a downtown, make it really vibrant. So we have a contract with a local nursery that does planters and hanging baskets. They're gorgeous. We also do lighting installations. So we partnered with the city, and also we hire a lot of local artists to do installations. So we do that in the winter, especially. You'll see what we did a couple of years ago on Worcester Common, beautiful lighting displays, especially during COVID. There wasn't a lot to do, especially that first winter. So we had a bunch of lighting displays on the common and around in different places, and just encourage people to come out and be safe, basically. And then finally, we are doing wayfinding. So Worcester's really compact, it's walkable, but people are just used to like going, parking in the garage, or parking right there, like where they want to be, and not walking around. And it's really walkable. So all these things are trying to make Worcester, and downtown Worcester specifically, more walkable, and to unite the whole area of the district. These different elements, especially like the flowers and wayfinding, just trying to make downtown more cohesive, more walkable, more friendly, attract more people. And we were able to get a grant from the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism to help support this. So they actually are funding this initiative. They gave us $75,000 actually. So we're using that for wayfinding. We're using that for banners, street poles, and we're translating our website to languages, and we're doing the whole advertising campaign. So that's all funded by the Office of Travel and Tourism. I mentioned artists, so we really wanted to support local artists and have them help us make downtown Worcester more vibrant. We have a lot of vacancies. We've had a lot of vacancies, storefront vacancies, and then during COVID, even more. I want to say like in May of 2020, about a third of our storefronts were vacant. So we have now put out 3 calls for art, soliciting local artists. We pay stipends for them to do window displays especially in empty or vacant storefronts. And so we've done now 15 different storefronts. Events, Chris was talking about events, so we've started to sponsor our own events. We also partner with other organizations to help them with their events. You know, we're just in the initial stages of this, but we've already seen a lot of enthusiasm. Last year, we got a grant from the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism for $75,000. We partnered with the Hanover Theater. They have a new repertory company, Hanover Theater Repertory. So they're putting on their own productions. And last year was the first year, and they had this idea to do Shakespeare on the Common. You know, Boston does it, a lot of places do it. So they wanted to do Shakespeare on the Common, and they wanted to do it for free, so that people in Worcester, as well as from other areas, could come to Worcester, could come downtown and enjoy a night of theater in downtown Worcester. And so we got this grant from Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, and we just, spread the word really wide. It was so successful that the Hanover added another week of performances, because they basically like sold out. This was so successful, so many people. And with that, we also marketed the local businesses and restaurants around it, and really encouraged people like, hey, you're coming downtown for this free performance, but please, have dinner first or stay for drinks later. So it was really successful. It was called Worcester. And advocacy, and mentioned advocacy. Chris talked about during COVID. So we were really new. In fact, it was just me at the very beginning, and then COVID hit. So we reached out and put a lot of resources, as Chris mentioned, on our website. We did a lot of surveying and really understanding what people's needs are, business owners especially like Chris mentioned, retail and restaurants and personal services. We had some healthcare and massage and things like that. They were really struggling, as for the restaurants. And we were an advocate. So an advocate for federal relief, for state relief, and for local relief. Also, Worcester was a little behind on outdoor dining. So many communities were doing outdoor dining, and they're struggling. So we really helped, hey, let's put you in touch with other cities that are doing this. Chris mentioned, the meetings that we had with colleagues across the state, and who's doing outdoor dining? How can we get in touch with this planning director or economic development director? Let's get resources. Let's help you, city, because you're struggling right now. How can we bring resources from, who's doing outdoor dining? Salem, Cambridge, Boston. Okay, let's find out what their regulations are. Give those to you. Help you out because you just don't have, you're struggling with capacity. Let's help you. And so we were able to do that, start to bring outdoor dining to Worcester. Excellent. So here's some of our impact. 3 years old here, but we collected a lot of trash, graffiti, helped with events, and we've also, like I mentioned, we're starting to raise grants and leverage our status as a nonprofit. Next slide. So here's that parklet that I mentioned. This was Mass DOT, Mass DOT, their Shared Streets and Spaces grant. So the city of Worcester had applied in the previous year for a different area, and we really wanted to bring some of those dollars to downtown Worcester. So we strongly encouraged the city, actually helped them with the application, and then the city turned that over to the bid, because the city has such stiff procurement regulations and requirements, and to do stuff fast like that would happen, but we're not under those. And so they were able to turn it over to us.
we did the bidding process, we managed that project. It's been really gorgeous. Our vision is to do parklets all around Concord for different restaurants. So we started with one, but it's been very successful. The restaurant said that they, last year especially, they had like this waiting list for people to reserve. Here's our budget. So our budget is primarily funded through our bid fees. How much we allocate to different programs with our ambassador program, our total safe program being the most. Next slide. And then here's some of our plans. Our biggest hurdle is going to be getting through the renewal. So we're up for renewal next year. We've already started to work on that. And we see the future to be expanding the bid. I know, I can tell that the bid is doing things and is successful because businesses, especially businesses outside and other commercial districts in Worcester, have been saying, how can we be part of the bid? How can we start a bid? Can we be part of the downtown bid? And people say, when we walk from outside the bid into the bid, you can really see the difference. It's clean, there's no graffiti, the flowers are gorgeous, and it really makes an impression that we're now in this district, this managed district.
Well, I had a couple of questions. First of all, this business section is excellent, and I hope that it can be downloaded and being sent, forward to us. Because you present a lot of information. So, first of all, love the idea of the outdoor dining. Also, when you talked about the lighting, did you find when you did that lighting that it how would I say, lowered crime? Do you work with? Yeah.
It's a crystal light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Certainly.
let me answer that quick before, then you can go back to Evelyn. The lighting, so we had a perception problem in Springfield.
Yeah.
The crime statistics were not as bad as people would make it sound.
Oh, yes, we know that.
So I'm sure that's another similarity. The lighting made the folks that came to town a lot more, as well as the people that live there, a lot more comfortable. And people don't like doing bad things when people can see them. So no, it's made a tremendous impact. And the police department keeps telling us that as much as we can.
So that's rather advantageous, and certainly it's better for business too, because businesses suffer if the primary or the perceived crime rates high, because the insurance companies can go, and how do I say, escalate the cost. Which brings me to the next thing. When you talked about, which I think is super, you want to plow the sidewalks. That's just brilliant. Did you have to do liability insurance with all that and the equipment, et cetera? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we have liability insurance. We have to provide the certificate of insurance to the city. But each of our contractors also have to be required. We do contracts with each of our vendors. And so we require them to have a certain level.
And the last thing, I love the idea of the art in windows and having seen that in other communities. Did you find after you had the art in the windows that any of, how would I say, small, individuals interested in having a small business downtown? Did that spark more of an interest? Did you find that, maybe, let's say you said you had 15 windows. Did one or two become rented? To avoid.
So, yes, some of them have become rented. It's hard to know, like what spurs somebody to come. Is it specifically the art and flowers? Is it the cleanliness?
Sure.
But yes, we have seen a number of storefronts rented. We've had a number of restaurants open. We have some retail starting to come. So it is making a difference.
Okay, so you have benefited in very entities, and it's been advantageous for those that were there and for those that come along.
Yeah, because think about, when you're walking on a street and if all you see are vacant storefronts and that's your image of downtown,
Yes.
you don't want to go there. You don't want to
No,
be
no, no,
there.
I
Versus you walk downtown and maybe they're vacant, but what you see is art.
something attractive.
You see something interesting, something that attracts your eye. It's such a different feel from a vacant storefront or just it's papered over versus like butterflies or whatever.
Oh,
For those who might remember, it was funded by the Brockton Redevelopment Authority. We did have Fuller Craft Museum that did Arts in the Window, but that was about 15 years ago, 13 years ago. But I think this is where the continuity of having a business improvement district and having the funding, again, that's the whole purpose of the continuity of it. But
I mean, because the branches look terrific, they look like, beautiful cities that some of us about vacation in, whether it's Ottawa or Fort Lauderdale, we're wrong. I mean, that looked terrific, so I'm good for you guys, no, thanks.
Quick question for you, Andrew, Chris. You guys still have TDI?
Do we still have TDI?
Yes. Chris says yes. The others,
Yes, so we do, we're still a TDI, but we're not like a second tier now or
no,
something,
you're
so.
graduate.
Yes,
Graduate.
exactly. Brad can speak to that.
Sure.
We're actually,
Oh, I forgot.
not involved in here.
Amanda.
Amanda,
so-
it's the microphone.
Just, Ann wants me to bring up one point because I have to go. But yes, so our TDI has graduated also, but we still have the resources and the connectivity. And there's a new TDI being formed in a different part of the city right now of Springfield. But the one last thing that I wanted to mention, and you were asking about your boxing movement, right? Well, 5 years ago, we lost AHL hockey. Okay, we had the Springfield Falcons. And so when you talk about a big hit to a downtown, 38 home games, that's if you don't make the playoffs, that arguably they're probably bringing 2,000 people, but it's still a lot of people to a small downtown. We quickly engaged with Paul Picknelly, whose family has been invested in Springfield for multiple generations, put together a local ownership group. And because of our tax status, we went to Mass Mutual, which is a great corporate partner. And I lobbied as part of that group to get funding from Mass Mutual. So the Springfield bid is actually the second largest shareholder in the Springfield Thunderbirds. The Springfield Thunderbirds now bring 5,500 people per night for 38 home games. And we just unfortunately finished our Calder Cup run this weekend and lost, but that was an additional 9 games of sellout crowds. And if you want to think that doesn't make a difference to your downtown and how the businesses do, it's tremendous. So without a bid, I don't know if, I don't want to say Paul couldn't have put it together because he'd kill me, but we were a great vehicle to be part of that group. Because of our tax status, Mass Mutual couldn't invest directly in the team because of their publicly traded company. So they were able to put their dollars to us, and we were written in as part of the ownership group where if there's any loss, we don't have to kick any money in. If there's any gain, we do get those monies and it goes back into economic development.
For those who don't know, Paul is the still owner of Peter Pan.
Well, his family, yes,
His family.
Peter Pan Bus Lines.
And so, but again, you have business owners who are investing in their community, which is pretty critical when you think about Harbor One or whether it's Ideal Jewelry or whatever it is. It's just important that the conversation happens. And I know, right?
And you have people here investing now, and I'm sure, you know,
That's right.
it's important, but thank you for having me.
Thank
I
you.
do have to run.
I wanted to say one thing that I had asked Chris about, and I mentioned it early on around leveraging your resources. And Chris I just asked him how much of his budget is comprised of the bid fees. It's about 60%. So those dollars then are leveraged out, to the other part of his budget is our other resources that come in, either through sponsorships, through grants that they write, or other relationships or other partnerships that have brought in to implement the programs and services that are developed. I think that's key, that advocacy role, that ability to be the entity that wakes up every single day thinking about how do I make this geography better. And that's the whole concept behind why these things work. And I think, Evelyn, thank you very much, a fabulous presentation. And really great. So why we think about the things that, how each one of these are different. Each one of these organizations really reflect what your vision is, what you want to achieve in your downtown. We were at Central Square in Cambridge a couple of weeks ago with a tour of people from Fall River. And one of their property owners said, I'm a new property owner. I came into this district and I said, is this it? Is this what I aspire to be? Or do I want this to be something better? Not that it was bad, but I want it to be something better. So thinking about, what your vision is, and then what's it take to get there? And then how does an organization working collectively like this with focused management and strategies, how does that help you achieve that vision? So that's kind of the concept. That's why there are literally thousands of these things around the world, and predominantly in North America. They've been around for 60 years. They're a part of communities of all sizes, landscape. New York City has over 80 of them alone. A lot of small cities have bids. I encourage you to take the time to go online, just Google business improvement districts, see, some of them around and what they do, because you don't have to follow any one model. Your model is your own. You determine, what you want it to do, what you want it to be, what that fee structure looks like, who are the other partners you bring to the table, and what you want it to look like in downtown Brockton. So one of the things I hope before you all, we're going to open it up for questions, but before you leave tonight, take a few minutes to just put stickers up on the wall, make notes on the boundaries. Do those seem to resonate with you? What kinds of activities or events do you want to see in downtown Brockton? Where should they be? Who else should be involved? Because the best bids out there in the world are ones that form partnerships and collaborations and are creative in how they approach things to help, again, leverage those dollars and stretch them as far as they'll go, so that everybody wants to see the biggest bang for their buck.
And speaking of leveraging dollars, we have a question from the Zoom about National and Massachusetts Main Streets programs. Is there a connection or a role for bids to have when these overlap?
Well, yes, there are. Massachusetts does not have technically a Main Street program, but the Main Street model is a wonderful model, and in some communities that's a good way to go. The question around any organization is around sustainability. So how does, whether you choose whatever organizational model you choose, you have to think about sustainability and how do you assemble the resources and the support you need. So in some cases, Main Street programs have looked at the bid model simply because it's sustainable and brings more sustainable resources to the table. But they have many common and similar elements to them.
How about any other questions? I know that some may be thinking because, so the Downtown Brockton Association still exists. It's not necessarily going away, but right now it's in this transition period where there's this opportunity to talk about a business improvement district. Again, this is still the feasibility stage from the perspective that John Marion, as well as Joe Casey. So Joe Casey, the new CEO of Harbor One, not only has signed on as a co-chair of this advisory group, if you will, he's also putting money into it, because not only do I have a full-time job and then trying to do the DBA, there's a lot that goes into organizing these bid meetings and sending notices out and things of that nature. So Harbor One has committed some funds to help with the capacity of making sure that we stay connected. So that's why your emails and your contact information, so you can receive these slides. But I do think before I lose a few other people, this really is important to get your input. Those stickers, they're anonymous, it doesn't put your name on it, but it really is important that you now take this. And then Anne, as well as Evelyn, are here for a little bit more. They do have to go back to Springfield, but really important for the property owners, business owners, property owners, right? You're here. Just even constituents, like stay involved and have your voice. This is not a done deal by any means. This is now to hear how this gets formed and how those funds, if we are going to be using them, if it is going to be, we don't get as much snow, but we did get what, 32 inches in one day, and And if we're bringing more people with housing in the downtown, we want to make sure those streets are walkable. So if anybody has been in downtown during the snowstorm, you know they're walking in the middle of the street. And the kids are walking in the middle streets because we have downtown schools that kids walk to. It really is important that we are doing this as a community. So I'm going to be quiet. I do think, Anne, maybe to have folks get up, or if there's questions from anybody, Phil?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for this meeting, but why does Main Street have to line with parking meters? So that I think it's a huge detriment to the downtown. I want to ask you from Worcester, is your Main Street lined with meters?
Took out the meters.
Just if I could, Evelyn, just for 1 second, so just for those that are listening in, the question is about downtowns and the meters on lining Main Street.
Yeah, so in Worcester, they took out the individual, the old meters and replaced them with a kiosk that's for the whole block. We do think it's really important to have meters and to have paid parking, even if it's a nominal amount, because it keeps it keeps those cars, it keeps the turnover.
I go to a lot of other downtowns besides Brockton, and a lot of them have between 30-minute and 60-minute free parking. That also keeps parking, the cars circulating, in and out. I just think parking downtown Brockton, you want people to come downtown to Main Street. And if they're over a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or they don't have a quarter, or they don't have a credit card to put in, they get a big fat ticket and they're not going to come back, in my opinion. And I've heard a lot of people say that.
The only other thing I would add is there's been a lot of meters in the downtown that have been broken.
I know that.
And so on top of that, it is revenue that is not being utilized.
And I think it's very short-sighted by the city to have parking.
I think that I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I've never, ever been to a single downtown meeting that the question of parking hasn't come up. Because parking is never fixed, it's never done, it's managed. So having affordable, accessible, and convenient parking that people can find is extremely important. But looking at how that works, it's more of a whole. It's not like if you take every parking meter out of downtown, I will guarantee you Lorraine's Fashion Showcase employees will park in front of their store all day long because, well, they
get 30-minute parking.
so it's almost impossible sometimes to effectively police that kind of opportunity. So thinking about parking, I'm just saying, thinking about parking, you need to think about parking in a whole. In like, where is parking located? How is it priced so it's most convenient and accessible to people? How is it signed? How is it promoted? How is it managed? Because you can't, it's not just one solution, and it's always kind of evolving and changing depending on what the uses are in your downtown. So part of what many organizations like a BID do are working with the city to really look at that parking analysis, to figure out what the best way to manage that parking is, so that you're addressing some of those concerns. So you're creating turnover, you're creating the opportunity for people to park, and discouraging behavior that doesn't do those kinds of things. So I'm going to throw one other piece of information in the fire, because some places, some bids actually look at creating parking districts and then taking a little piece of the parking revenue and reinvesting it back into the activities of a bid. So, and people don't mind that, because, and if you look at Pasadena, California, is a great example. They have on the parking stickers, they say your 10 cents of your fee is being spent on flowers, the concerts, your ambassador program, so that it spreads that responsibility over lots of folks who are using this downtown, and it makes their experience better, but they have a little skin in the game too. So thinking about how do you manage and how do you utilize parking is always going to be there. It's never going to go away, but how you do it well and how you advocate for those things, I think, is really important. And that's what a bid can do. I'd like to leave you with just a couple of takeaways, and then I'm going to ask you to fill in some stuff if you can. One of the things that I think both of these speakers, I can always talk about it. I have actually formed some bids and run bids and done all that stuff, but you expect to hear this stuff from me because I'm your consultant, but to hear from the people who are actually living it every single day, I think is much more real. And so to hear what they are, I want to just reinforce what they talk about, leveraging your resources, being nimble, being able to respond to both crises and opportunities, being creative. So the Falcons go away, the Thunderbirds go away, putting together a way to buy that team so that keeps that level of activity in your downtown. Not every the city's not going to, in most cities don't do that stuff. But an organization that's waking up every day thinking about how do I make this place better, those organizations can't. So it's like doing those enhancements, thinking about how to approach it. How do you support businesses? How do you help property owners find new tenants? How do you keep good tenants? How do you work to try to make all of those kinds of things happen? That's the role of an organization like this. And with everybody, everybody with this, with a little skin in the game is really how these organizations can work. So I'd love to leave you with that thought to think about and to go research it. Go look at the other bids in Massachusetts and elsewhere online, see what they're doing, because you don't have to do what they're doing. You can do what you want to do and figure out what works and what's your vision for your downtown in Brockton. So I think it's an exciting time. I love working on these things because I know they work. I mean, I've seen them, I've worked with them, I've been working with them for years, and you see where they start. Well, I started this downtown Springfield bid. We were interested in two things: clean and safe. That was it. That we were like just trying to make it cleaner and safer. And over 23 years, they're investing in buildings, they're partnering with, they're leveraging, their budgets, many times fold. They're buying a hockey team. Nobody ever thought they would be a part of that kind of thing, but they're also doing clean and safe, but they're doing these other things as well. So those are the kinds of things to think about. So dream, aspire to be what you want to be, and then try to set in motion the tools to get you there. So I think these kinds of organizations are the things that can help you do that. So right up in there, what kind of activities, events would you like to see in downtown Brockton? Where would they be? Who should be partnering with them? What else could you do? What are your priorities? Take those little stickies and anything that you see as a priority, put it on the sticker, because we'd like to hear from you. Take a look at the proposed boundaries. Do those resonate with you? Should there be more or less different? What are the key things that should be included in those districts? And we're just starting, so we'd love to hear from you if you have any other thoughts. We're going to put these things up on the website and then make them available so that if you have thoughts, all of our information is up there. Please do reach out. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Like a voice to a downtown business.
It's exactly what it is. It's your voice. One of the property owners in Central Square said to me, he goes, I think I have a team behind me. So when I call them up, the bid can respond, and I know I have a team. Like, I don't have to go find somebody to get the removal that's tagged my building. I don't have to. I have an idea, they will help me put it together. But they specifically said, I feel like I have a team behind me, and that's what you can look at with an organization like this.
So just thank you, everyone. Please go up to those boards, take a look, and you'll get an information from me. We'll get you the link to the website where all the information, the PowerPoint. But again, thank you to Evelyn, to Ann, and to Chris, but as well as to John Fay for the planning office. But most importantly, for those of you who have a whole lot of other places you could be, but this is important to you as a downtown investor. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming. You can write on there, right up on the.
And do you want any, I don't think we need to end. I think so. I'm just going to say, for those of you who are joining us online, there's going to be this activity, but we will share that in an email to all of you. So thank you. Have a good night.
I'm very actually really advantageous.